Welcome back to Jay Smokehouse. This will be part 4 in being interviewed by a social worker and drug counselor. Now, my camera angle is off by a little bit. My tripod apparently was hit and I had not realized it, so please bear with me. Thank you.
Let's get back into it real quick. I think we left off, we were talking about, like our ideal, we hit the button on the computer screen, we get a profile that comes up, and, maybe we have some advanced AI that asks us a series of questions, and we just sort of tell the AI, yep, I've been experiencing these symptoms for X amount of days, blah, 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 and it rolls up, it's like, oh, you want the purple snipple snapple from, this company, you should try these strains, blah, 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 whatever.
What are you talking about? What site and stuff?
No, I'm saying like our future, like the best.
Oh, the future.
Yeah, like if we could get our, if you could like design the future in your brain, like what does it look like for you in terms of cannabis? In
terms of cannabis, the future where everyone can grow it themselves.
Sure. Or
have the
access.
Information of what they need to grow. Right. Access to what they need. I mean, even if they don't want to grow, I still want companies to be able to create cannabis or grow cannabis and do their thing. Because not everyone's going to want to grow. I mean, you can grow your own food. Not everybody wants to grow their own food.
Right.
And so that's still going to be a market. I just want those who do want to be able to grow it if they want legally.
Yeah.
And then to have the same information as those companies and what they need to grow for themselves. That's where I see the future, where you can go in and where you can buy a pack of cigarettes, rather you could buy some medication. Of course, you should be a certain age because, like I've said previously, I think you need to be of age, done developing before you use cannabis.
Right.
Unless, there are, I think, if somebody has an ailment that cannabis can help before they're done developing, if it can have more benefits than the side effects, I think that you should still do that. But other than that, and other than the exception, you should wait until your brain is done developing.
Right. For sure. Anything that you would, in terms of legislation, in terms of rules, I know that I talked to this guy at the dispensary about, access to flower versus, being sort of stuck behind this idea of having to buy carts that may or may not do the thing that you're looking for in terms of medicine, but may or may do the thing that you're looking for recreationally. That looking at Illinois marijuana laws, right? You can go to a dispensary. It's legal. You can go to a dispensary and you can buy as much flower as you've got cash in hand, right? But realistically,
can you? I know that there are limitations, even in Colorado, of how much you can buy, especially from out of state.
Sure, like
or
you
in
can't
state if you're wanting to do it recreationally. Right. I'm pretty sure that there's a limit you can buy. Correct?
Because they don't want you to spend $1 million, $2 million, load up a U-Haul and drive it to a state, where, you know what I mean, and turn it into an illicit enterprise. That's not what I'm talking. What I'm saying is, like, if it were up to me, I would want to be able to just legally grow it myself, whatever I wanted. Right.
However much is that? That's what you mean.
That I could buy it. I could buy something from Amazon if I wanted to. You know what I mean? That it would be that legal and that accessible that
Agreed.
you could get on Amazon and be like, hey, somebody found this one strain that's good for blah blah blah. It has all the things I'm looking for. It's $5.99 for one seed or whatever. I don't know.
Here's the thing: is the making it illegal doesn't stop people or kids from doing it.
Right.
It will actually be better if you legalized it and put restrictions on it.
Right.
That actually helps. I mean, it doesn't stop it completely, but you will still be able to curb it better than just making it illegal.
Right.
In my opinion, at least.
Right.
And so I agree. It should be that legal. You should be able to buy it from wherever you want, just like you can for any type of home grow, for any type of plant. But you should have to verify your age in order to purchase it. Right. I mean, there it is.
So when are we going to Amsterdam?
Amsterdam. It's been legal there for what? 50 years now.
I don't know. It's always been sort
Pretty
of the
sure
mythical,
it's 50 years.
Right? The mythological place. The end result for every true pothead was
It's because they decriminalized it in
Right.
the 70s,
Yeah.
way before others, and that's why it's so synonymous with
Yeah.
cannabis.
Yeah. And they really are free about it. You can go a lot of different. I've never been, but my understanding is that there's a lot of access. You just kind of sort of pick what you want, and you go there and get it. Mm-hmm. And they don't really care too much about it.
Well, I know I have some friends there and some that actually have podcasts themselves, but we'll talk about that later. I've already talked about his podcast previously in other episodes. It's
Okay,
Let's Smoke Podcast. They're not exactly as serious as I am on mine, but I do find it enjoyable to laugh at every once in a while.
Right on.
And so I would look them up if you do like comedy.
Cool.
But yes, one of them is from the Netherlands or Holland, and they are Dutch, and so
Yeah, cool.
he knows all about it.
Right on. So there are some places that have the kind of access that we're talking about, and I suppose they're good models to look at in terms of what is the end result. Have they had and this is one thing I'd be curious to know is that, the big argument against all that was that the population would suffer because they would become hopeless addicts, right? That was always the prevailing theory that if you live in a place where drugs are legal, and if marijuana or cannabis is a gateway drug, then it's reasonable to think that everything is going to go, completely in the gutter because, everyone has access to this and they won't be able to say no to it. Mm-hmm. It'll destroy the whole society. But I think, if I'm not mistaken, they're still up and running. They're on their feet, doing well. Amsterdam is, and the prevailing theory is that, right, if that's the case, then we might look at broadening access, hopefully.
Agreed. And in California, they legalized medicinal marijuana in 1996.
Right.
And then what was it recreationally in, I can't remember, 2010?
Yeah. But I mean, it's
Somewhere in
our lifetimes this is kind of happening. It's pretty interesting.
But I mean, I guess California isn't the best example now, is it? But
well, it's tough, isn't it? Because you've got California.
And then Colorado. And Colorado, I mean, Colorado's doing magnificent.
Yeah, but it's also very different. It's all like, when you look at the different states, each state does it so differently, right? And I think that's another confusing thing is that because each state has its own way of allowing and providing access. And again, I think a lot of this has to do with taxes, regulation. The government loves to, make a simple thing hard. Oftentimes, sometimes, and the populace suffers for it. I think more often than not. But is there some place that's doing it better than other places? Is Colorado kind of the place that's doing it right, in your opinion, compared to, I don't know, there's other states I don't even know really.
Well, I've heard people say good things about Massachusetts. I haven't been there, but they apparently you're even able to grow it just recreationally as long as you keep it under a certain amount of plants. But it might be medicinally. I could have mixed that up. I'll need to check that again. And then Oregon, I've heard some people say good things about Oregon and Washington, but again, I have not visited those states. I visited California. I visited Colorado, right. Illinois, and a couple of others. But I would say out of the ones I have visited, I like Colorado the most. They seem to be more laid back. Everyone that I've been, the ones that I went to, everyone was very knowledgeable. I mean, they knew more than the average worker here in Illinois, at least to the dispensaries that I've been to. I'm sure that there are wonderful dispensaries I have not been to.
Again, Illinois. We're not putting anybody down. We don't want to do that.
And in Illinois, in those states that aren't that great, it's usually the state restrictions or regulations that are really hindering them from having good service.
Yeah, for sure. Again, the wonderful interference, governmental interference on everything, making it much easier than it needs to be, right? But at the same time, we could say some really positive things without having to say any negative things about Illinois dispensaries or anybody else. That Colorado does it really well because they do what?
Because you can see your product, you can see it weighed. The ones that I were at, they had their grows where you could see them through a looking glass.
Right.
That's a very nice thing to be able to see the way they grow their cannabis. Now, maybe that was for show, a sham, and they got their products from somewhere else, but it did not seem that way.
Right.
They were
trying to be transparent, maybe.
Yeah, it definitely seemed that way. And I thought that their product was very fresh. It was not dry. That's one issue I found in Illinois is it's all pre-packaged, it's all pre-weighed, and it's very dry. And I just wonder if it's been weighed when it's not dry, when it has moisture in it, and then it dries, which would mean that you're actually getting less weight.
Oh, interesting.
You're paying for less weight. Yeah. And as it sits and as it dries, if it's not kept correctly, it will degrade in its cannabinoids. So like the THC will degrade.
Right.
And actually they found that storing them in freezers is actually, and I think it was a study in Italy, is the best way to have the least amount of THC degradation.
Yeah.
And that is because it freezes it so it's not degrading. But a lot of people don't like that because it can freeze the trichromes and they're very easily fall off your cannabis. And that stores a lot of the THC.
You know what's crazy is, and sorry to interrupt, Jay, but
You're good.
I remember a friend of mine always kept his weed in his freezer. And he didn't, I don't think he did it for that reason. I think he did it because the freezer was really efficient at keeping the smell of the weed down. You know what I mean? Like you could put it in your freezer and close your freezer and you just wouldn't smell it. It wouldn't stink. No, but that's interesting that they found that that's actually the best way to keep it. And he kind of stumbled on that on accident.
Well, a lot of people don't like if you store it in a Ziploc bag, I don't suggest putting it in the freezer because it will jostle those trichromes too much. I suggest like a mason jar. Because then if you be very careful, you're not jostling it too much. It's not getting hit. It's freezing. And I can say from personal experience that if I have the same allotment of flower out and one frozen, I receive a better benefit. It gets me to where I need to be with less as long as I keep it in the freezer. If I keep it out and I go 2 weeks with the amount that I have, at the end of those 2 weeks, it's really not, it's not working as well. Right. And that's, I'm becoming more used to it, but I also think it's the THC degrading.
It's interesting because then you're looking at, quality controls. I know that anytime the FDA is involved, you're talking about, chemicals and, we hope that sort of thing doesn't happen to cannabis, that we, have to then, go on a campaign to make, natural and organic cannabis a thing, that it stays as natural and organic as possible.
Isn't that why some people will become homesteaders with their food?
That's the idea.
They want to have organic food.
They want to have control over.
Why can't we do that with cannabis?
Exactly.
So we can have organic cannabis.
Yeah, it seems silly. I think at this point it would be an odd thing if you did it and got in trouble for it. I don't think anybody's looking for it anymore. I don't think it, and I'm not encouraging anyone to do something illegal, but I think that, I think we've entered into an era or an age where people, would not be so appalled or, shocked by someone having a pot plant on their front porch or something like that. It would probably go largely unnoticed, actually.
I'm sure a lot of people don't even know what a pot plant would look like, right off the bat.
They might remark on how smelly your plant is or something. You're like, man, that plant really gives off a lot of odor. But that's about it.
A good plant.
Yeah. Right. You just call it a rhododendron and people will not, question you. Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah. It's a Japanese rhododendron.
You've seen The Land Before Time, right? Tree stars.
Yeah.
I'm growing tree stars.
Exactly. Right. Where it's like, you give it away at Christmas as gifts. Oh, you see here, guys. Here's one of those. Put it on your front porch and lots of sunlight.
But yes, I would suggest at least trying to store it in the freezer because
Interesting.
I really enjoy that myself.
Cool.
At least that's how I do it.
Right on.
And really quick,
Sure.
I just wanted to give a shout out to my sponsor, CannabisEducationPosters.com, really quick. I know
Please do. Please do.
They just sent me these mugs here.
Yeah.
And I was
Gorgeous.
I thought they told me they're going to send me some, and I thought they would be about this big.
Yeah.
I mean, I have massive hands.
Yes.
And if you can see, I can put all 4 fingers in
It's a very substantial mug.
It's a
for
very
sure.
large mug. I think they have different sizes, but I also have an extra one, and I'm going to go ahead and raffle it off here soon.
Nice.
And I'm just going to go and tease it, everyone. So to keep an eye out for what you need to do to enter this raffle for a free mug from CannabisEducationPosters.com.
Cool.
And I'll go ahead and have information in the description of this video.
Right on. Yeah, it's a great mug for sure.
I love all their products.
They're really cool for sure.
I know people might think, they're your sponsor. Of course, you're going to say that, but
No,
I
I
love
know.
their stuff before they were sponsors.
I agree. If nothing else, they're wonderful at conversation pieces. Somebody looks at it, they pick it up, and they go, "Tell me more about this." Or they're like, "Oh, that's interesting. That eye catching." Especially the posters, especially.
And they're
for sure.
professional. That's what
Yeah,
really
they
caught
look
my
really good.
eye. When I saw them, I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I've been looking for. Because like I've told you, I wanted to make my channel professional. I didn't want to have stereotypes. I didn't even want to smoke on my channel so I don't detract from the information from people who might be against cannabis or believe in the stigma.
Mm-hmm. I'll be honest with you. I'm kind of getting to the end of, a lot of, I don't know how much time we have left or if you want to keep going. What are your feelings on the content, the amount of content? I can sit here for a few minutes.
We can go ahead and stop it there.
Okay. All right.
I think we got about 2 episodes worth.
Good. And if not, next time, again, I try not to script it too much because I really love the unscripted conversations. I mean, these are really just conversations I have in my head sometimes with, like, I really want to ask you, you know what I mean? And I don't want to bombard you with texts all the time. And so I'm like, all right, just keep that in mind, right? I'll write some things down. Sometimes like, all right, I'll ask him that, see what he thinks about that. Had that conversation with the floor manager, really nice guy. I could see myself like talking to him for hours. I told him, I said, look, next time I come in, I'm going to bring you, one of this business card. And
yeah, I'll give you some today.
I have them. I have the
I
have some. And I told him, I said, I'm going to bring you this business card. And I told him, I said, look, I'd like you to consider just thinking about maybe being part of a Zoom interview or something like that in the future. You have a lot of really interesting ideas, thoughts, and talents. It would really mesh well with his show. And he was like, yeah, man, I'm happy to, look at it, check it out, whatever. Cool guy. It's just something to put in your back pocket.
I'm
down the
open to all
road.
that.
Yeah. It's just content, you know what I'm saying? As far as good content. And, again, it could be something where he sits in a chair and he's not on film, that sort of thing. And, but yeah, I'm, not going to name him, of course. I'll let him decide what he wants to do when the time comes. But he seemed like a very likely candidate to sit and have a real informal kind of conversation about, his industry. He seemed very knowledgeable. I asked him some really hard questions about his industry, and, he was very forthright. He's very transparent, and, his goal is very much similar to ours. Like, he wants everyone to have a really healthy experience. And that's interesting because he's not just there to, sell drugs, and I think that's the misconception,
It is. So many people just think of cannabis as a drug, and it's not. And
any more than the pharmacist is a drug dealer. Yeah,
as so funnily said, it's not a drug; it's a plant. It just grows that way. But if you just so happen to set it on fire, there are effects.
There are effects. Yes, absolutely.
But no, it's not a drug. You process drugs. Drugs are used to flood your. I say that not all. I'm sure that there are some that are very beneficial to people. I'm not sure. I'm not a medical professional.
Right.
However, the ones that I know that have affected me, they might have helped what I needed, but they did so much more that was so much worse for me than what it was doing to help me.
Yeah.
And that's what I and cannabis, if you use too much, there are people who become, quote unquote stoners. And I still know some stoners that are very brilliant, but some people can become very lazy, but that's not because of cannabis. That's their own personality. Yeah. They become too reliant on it.
Right. Well, and maybe we segue there into what will be a future number of episodes about, just talking very straightforward about, what we mean by consumption, and what consumption really means and in terms of ingesting or consuming cannabis and what are people's perceptions, thoughts, fears, ideas, all that kind of stuff, because I think that's it has its own mythos. You know what I mean? Like you're talking about the culture that surrounds it, and maybe we talk a little bit about it. If we shed light on it, I don't think it's a bad thing. I mean, we kind of peripherally joke about it, but I think that we could shed some light there or whatever. Maybe your audience has some ideas in terms of ideas that they want to talk about. I mean, I would always suggest people comment, and
I encourage people to comment always.
Yeah, I mean, he reads them, and he wants some of this input, feedback from you, and if it's plausible and doable, I think that all ideas are kind of on the table within reason. And I just want to say thanks. I really enjoyed our time together today.
Thank you, and I always do too.
All right, we'll see you.
And so, as always, please leave a comment, a like, and let me know what you think. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell button if you'd like to stay up to date with videos coming out in the future. And now, as always, Jay is going to go smoke a J.